Pep Talk UK, Pro Bs once again. Remember, subscribe, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by the man himself, Two Tanks, Ohara Davies. How are you, man?
I'm good, bro. Just in London today. Had a good walk up in Kensington Park this morning. Just relaxing still. I'm still on a break, but soon it'll be time to fight again.
We won't talk about, your break, man, but, we'll just keep it boxing, man. But, all right, man, look, in terms of like yourself, what is the news on your situation at the moment?
I'm not sure if I told you before, but with the golden contract that I won, there was a massive contract that I had with a multi-fight deal, a 5-fight deal up in America, good fight purses and that. But I've had time to think, and I'm not gonna take the golden contract.
Okay, what was the reason behind that?
I just thought it'll be a lot smarter for me to stay here in England. It's a lot smarter going to America. At one point, that was my dream. As an amateur boxer, if you said to me I had the chance to fight up in America, 5-fight deal, good fight purses, televised fights, I would have jumped at it and said, hell yeah. But now that I'm a lot older, you gotta think you've got to be smarter and you've got to be wiser. And staying in England for me will be the easier way to get where I want to get to. So decided to turn that down and stay here. At least I ain't got to get a flight and stay in a hotel and get familiar with the surroundings and get used to the climate. Mate, I'll be in my bed in Essex, wake up and go and fight. Hell yeah.
There was obviously a few murmurings. I don't know how serious it was of Marku moving down and fighting yourself. And I did see, I think, on the interview in IFL that that's not a serious possibility. Is that wrong, or is there anything in that?
Anything's a possibility if the price is right. If the price is right, anything's a possibility. But it's one thing coming online and saying stuff. There's another thing sending me a contract to make the fight happen. And I'm not with the online back and forth. I'm with the send the contract and let's make the fight happen business. So that's why I haven't really said anything. There's been no contract received. There's been no talks. There's been no negotiations. So I'm a world-class fighter and I'm going up to world level now.
Okay, all right. So in order for that fight to happen, obviously you need to be paid a substantial amount, or Marku's got to basically just build himself up more. Is that correct?
100%. 100%. Every fight for me has to make either financial sense or have to be getting up in the world rankings. If I'm going to be fighting against someone that's not ranked anywhere in the world rankings, it's got to make financial sense. And, it's got to make one of them.
Okay, all right, man. Hey, we got to turn our attentions to the events of last night. Carl Frampton, unfortunately, stopped in the 6th round by Jamel Herring. What did you make of the result itself?
That should be Carl Frampton's last fight. After a performance like that, I think his time in boxing is up. He's won world titles in 2 different weight classes, I believe. He's won many things. He's made himself, his family and his country proud. And you've got to know when to hang up the gloves. And I feel like after a performance like that last night, we've seen a massive decline in the performance of Carl Frampton. So it's a perfect time for him to say, you know what, I gave it one last go, it's boxing stuff. It's time to bring it to an end.
Yeah.
And, Jamel Herring fought a great fight. He fought a great, smart fight. He didn't really come out of gear one. He didn't really come out of gear one. For him, that was easy work for him.
Well, it is official. He did say that if I do lose the fight to Jamel Herring, I'm going to retire, and he's done exactly that. So it's official. I mean, in some ways, a sad ending, but you know, others might say, you know what, it's the right time. It's the right time, and you know, he can leave the sport of boxing, you know, with his faculties in check. And as you said also as well, you know, being a two-weight champion, being involved in some great fights, and keeping us boxing fans entertained.
Exactly, 100%. Carl Frampton's done his bit in the game, had hard fights, entertained the fans, entertained the crowd. But it's just time to give it up, and you've got to know when it's time to give it up. It's different when you're a fighter like Floyd. Your boxing career will last a lot longer when you don't take that many hits. But with a lot of Carl Frampton's fights, he hasn't taken that many shots, but it was evident to see last night that he has taken some damage in the game.
Yeah.
With how easily he got rocked by shots that weren't really that hard. These are signs of taking too much damage. And so, you know, that's the first time that we've seen Carl Frampton like that. So it's the perfect time for him just to hang up the gloves.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, you talked about, a lot of people talked about the wars. You know, those two fights he had with Santa Cruz, 1,000 punches thrown, I think, in the first fight. I'm not too sure the numbers in the second fight, but I know there's a hell of a lot of punches thrown in that fight. The Warrington fight, mad. The Daenerys fight, crazy. You know, he's been involved in some real wars, and maybe, you know, maybe it was just too much in the end, you know, in this Jamel fight.
100%. That's bound to happen. When you got a fighting style like that, we always know that your boxing career is going to be nice and sweet. You're going to entertain the fans. You're going to put up a lot of good fights. You're going to be known for a fighter that puts on entertaining fights. But your career is always going to be cut short. Tommy Cole was the same way. Tommy Cole retired before the age of 30 years old. Am I correct? Tommy Cole retired fairly young. He didn't even have that many fights. He had under 30 fights, because when you look at how he fights, he was someone that entertained the fans, entertained the crowd. No boxing fans had any bad words to say about Tommy Cole, because every fight it was exciting. You saw guts, you saw someone go down and come back up and fight, and he's got heart. But you take too many shots, you take too much damage, your boxing career is always going to be cut short when you get in that many hard fights. And I feel like a fighter like Floyd, he set the blueprint. How much damage has Floyd took? That's why Floyd still fights after 40 years old. And that is the blueprint. Even if you do lose a fight, have a defensive style. You don't take that many shots. The goal is not to entertain the fans. For me, the goal is to win by any means possible. Cause as much damage and take as less damage as you can. Obviously, you're going to get hit, but try to get hit as less as possible.
You think Floyd kind of, initially Floyd was very offensive, and then he became defensive. You think he kind of got away with it because, you know, he was offensive in the beginning, and then, you know, when he was established, you know, he started just, you know, obviously being a little bit more ring savvy and defensive.
Even when Floyd was offensive, he was very offensive in the early parts of his boxing career. When you look at fights like Diego Corrales, offensive, Gatti, Angel Manfredi, he was so offensive, but at the same time, he didn't take that many shots. So Floyd was offensive and he was still defensive at the same time. So Floyd, he didn't take any shots. Look at all of those fights. How much damage did he take when he had those fights? When he was on the front foot, offensive. He taught how to be on. He taught how to fight offensive, but still have a great defense and not take that many shots. But in the later parts of his boxing career, that's when he was really defensive. But even when Floyd fought on the offense, he still didn't take that much shots. So yeah.
I think if Floyd had like 10 fights like the fight against Maidana, you know, 10 of those type of fights, he could have been worn down a lot more, you know. But
100%. Not only fact that the Maidana fight took a bit out of Floyd, the Miguel Cotto fight that took a hell of a lot out of Floyd. All of those fights there, but he didn't get himself in too many of those fights.
Yeah, he did. You know, to be fair, Floyd always said, "Look, you know, I got out of the sport, you know, not taking too much punishment." But what I want to kind of conclude on is Frampton talked about, look, boxing's being good and bad for him. He said, look, the good part was obviously, you know, the acclaim, you know, the great moments, winning 2 world titles at 2 different weight classes, being involved in some fantastic fights. The bad part is obviously the sacrifice, leaving his family and missing some big moments with his family. I mean, obviously you're not a family man yet, but explain some of the sacrifice that, you know, the boxers have to, you know, they have to go through. You know,
Someone like
whilst,
Carl Frampton, sacrifices that having a family, you got to make a lot more sacrifices. Like Dillian White in himself in his last camp said, "I missed the birth of my child. I still haven't seen it yet. My child's been born for quite a few weeks now. I missed the birth. I haven't seen my child. So that is a massive sacrifice in itself, and that's the sacrifice that every fighter has to make. You got to sacrifice births, birthdays, Christmases, Easters, your own birthdays. When all your friends are out clubbing, having fun, when all your friends are out celebrating, eating food, and you can't, you got to go around the hill because you got to fight soon and you got to diet. You got to go bed early. You have to wake up early. You got to diet. You got to make weight. And then even after all that sacrifice, victory is still, it's not guaranteed. All the sacrifice does is that it gives you more of a chance of you getting that win, but you can work as hard as you want. You can sacrifice anything and still go there and get your ass knocked out. That is a hard thing about boxing. But you know, you got to sacrifice so much. And with me, my sacrifices are more like, they're not massive sacrifices. My sacrifices are more like sacrificing my social life. I ain't got that much of a social life anyway. I like being on my own. I'm on my own. My social life, my dieting. Obviously, I've got a diet. I can't have my 5 guys and that whenever I want. So my sacrifices aren't as much as what other people have to sacrifice, but I still got to sacrifice a little bit.
100, man. Hey, look, man, we look forward to some fight news, man. We'll be looking out for that. When it happens, man, just let us know, man.
Within the next week or so. So, you know, I've enjoyed my break. I've enjoyed my little rest, but it's time for me to get back in the ring soon. So within the next week or so, I should have some fight news to be announced.
All right, man. We're going to look out for that, man. He'd like to thank the man himself for coming through once more. OD, 2 tanks, Ohara Davies. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, bro.
Large up, man. Pep Talk, subscribe. Thank you. Thank you.